You might be watching this video because making a move to South Carolina is on your mind, and not everybody's always going to tell you the bad stuff that comes with all the good stuff. South Carolina is known for charming faces and beautiful places, but like any place, it's not always perfect, and this may be a controversial video amongst my friends and past clients. They might say, why the heck would you make a video about the top 10 reasons not to move to South Carolina? Well, I'm making this video for you so you can make a qualified decision as to whether or not South Carolina is a great place to live. I personally think it is, but I'm going to give you some direct drawbacks here. So the first I'm going to share with you is we have really hot summers. And I know this probably doesn't come as a surprise to you, but if you're searching online and you're just looking at average temps and things like that, it's not really telling the full story, because the reality is it's really, really humid here. And when you're looking online, it's probably not going to give you the actual temperature, the heat index, to tell you how hot it is. How long does it last? Well, it tends to start sometime in June and end sometime in September. I always say the heat tends to break about the second week of September. So if you're looking for that perfect year-round mild climate, we don't have it. It's hot, but the rest of the year is gorgeous. My favorite time of year is the fall, and it starts all the way in October, runs through December, and it's gorgeous. It's a great time to be here and to live here. Number two is traffic. You know, the reality is South Carolina has grown exponentially. In fact, in 2022, there was a study that showed we were the third fastest growing state in terms of population. And a lot of the roadways and infrastructure just haven't kept up with that growth. Major areas like Charleston or Columbia, more urban areas, have definitely felt that impact significantly, and there's a lot of rush hour traffic. Those are in the urban areas. In the more resort areas, what you'll find, places like Hilton Head where we are, you're gonna find that the traffic is specific to certain days. So in our area, we don't really travel on the highway on Saturday when it's turnover day. Turnover day is when people are checking in and checking out of their vacation homes, and that tends to be in a prescribed period of time throughout the summer. So there's traffic really everywhere. But when people complain about the traffic here, I have to laugh because I'm originally from Boston. I lived in DC. And it does not compare really to those major cities in terms of traffic. All right, the third one is wildlife. And I have to say, this was the one that probably took me the most getting used to. And, you know, look, we've got snakes and alligators here. You know, the thing about alligators is, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. You know, in our area, in the South Carolina Lowcountry, we definitely have them. In other areas of the state, they're very rare to see. You know, if you get up to Myrtle Beach, further upstate, it would be very unusual to see an alligator, and particularly upstate in the mountains regions and things like that, you're not gonna find alligators, but you will find snakes, and you do need to be aware of that. I am also not a huge fan of snakes, but I have gotten used to them. And it is very rare that you do bump into them or there's an issue with it, but it's definitely something you need to be aware of. If you are absolutely terrified of snakes, which I was, I've gotten much more comfortable with it. That is something that you need to be aware of. Also, in terms of wildlife, there are some other things. We call them palmetto bugs here. Let's face it, they're cockroaches. Everybody knows they're cockroaches. Here's what I would recommend. Everybody should just have, you know, pest control, quarterly treatments. That pretty much takes care of that issue. And also the other thing in terms of protecting your property that you own, termites. Termites can do a lot of damage if you don't know about them, and people oftentimes buy homes and aren't advised to get a termite bond, which protects your property, and it's basically an insurance policy against termites. We always advise our clients to make sure you know what type of termite bond you're getting, but the house is generally treated for termites, and you either get a repair or a retreatment bond. And the retreatment only covers retreatment. Repair will recover the repair up to a certain dollar amount. So you really want to know what you're signing and what you're getting into. All right, the fourth reason, and probably one of the top questions we get from buyers that are relocating, particularly to the coastal area of South Carolina, is what are the hurricanes like? Should I be worried? And the answer is yes, we do have hurricanes, absolutely. what that's been like. I've lived in South Carolina for about 21 years now. I've only had to evacuate once, and what I can tell you about that is evacuation is a stressful thing. It creates anxiety. You're not really sure when you're able to get back in. You're concerned about your property and the security of your property. So the two major events were Hurricane Matthew, which I did personally evacuate for, which was in 2016. Hurricane Irma was in 2017, which we did not evacuate for, and it was pretty minimal. It's a reality of our life here in South Carolina. Historically, it's really not been a big issue. A lot of these hurricanes have continued up the coast, sadly, to our partners up in the north of South Carolina. But we have definitely become accustomed to it, but it is something you have to get used to. So number 5 is what I would say is a lack of culinary breadth. We have incredible food in South Carolina. A lot of times that food can be pretty heavy. But if you're from a major area, let's say like New York or Boston, or a place where you're really used to a lot of variety in different food types, if you're looking for that breadth of opportunity, that's much more limited here. You're not gonna find a whole bunch of options for Lebanese food or Indian food. It's fairly down the middle, right? But a lot of the food here is outstanding, and I will have to say, for the average foodie out there, a lot of these metropolitan areas in South Carolina, or even the touristy areas in South Carolina, have significantly stepped up their food game, and it's gotten way better in the 21 years that I've lived here. Number 6 is tourist crowds. Look, when you live in a place that's really beautiful, where a lot of people want to visit, a lot of people want to be, you're gonna have a lot of tourist crowds around, and that, ranges in different areas. So, of course, by the beach, it can be counterintuitive to believe that Hilton Head, its busiest season is really the summer season. We are a drivable location from a lot of major areas, from Atlanta, from Charlotte, places in Tennessee, and we get so many visitors making this a beach destination vacation for their summer months. And, we get a lot of traffic. So on Hilton Head, we get 2.5 million visitors per year. That's a lot of congestion on an island with only 40,000 residents. And that creates a lot of traffic, as I said before, and it creates a lot of congestion. Places like Myrtle Beach, slammed with tourists. It's a busy, busy place. So you need to be aware of that. And you need to be aware of when that happens. Different areas, maybe you're upstate in South Carolina. Those can be a different tourist season up there, very different. But you need to be aware of when the tourists are here and be prepared for it. You might be waiting in line at a restaurant and make reservations. Number 7 is cost of living. And you might say, well, I would have thought cost of living in South Carolina is considerably less than other places, which it is as a whole. However, if you're going to a major area that is extremely popular, let's take Charleston, for example. That area has blown up, it's exploded. There's been so much growth there, and it's an expensive place to live. Same thing with our market here in Bluffton and Hilton Head, South Carolina. So many people have moved here. It has driven up the cost of housing, the cost of living in general, and our area has exploded. So if you think you're moving to the cheap South, that is no longer the case. There certainly are areas in South Carolina that still make South Carolina as a whole a lower cost of living compared to other states. But generally speaking, if you're moving to an area where a lot of people want to be, it's going to be more expensive. Number 8 is our spring is absolutely beautiful, but it comes with a catch. If you have bad allergies, that's probably going to hit you. You've probably never seen pollen like you've seen in the spring here. We call it our snow in South Carolina because you literally could sweep it off your front porch when the pollen hits, and it tends to last for several weeks. It is one of the downsides of the springtime. However, our spring is awesome. It starts in March and runs all the way through May. And it's a beautiful time, but you do have to put up with the pollen. And if you have bad allergies, or if you've never had allergies before and you get here and you find that you do, that's why. Okay, our 9th reason is it can be challenging to find a good paying job here in South Carolina. We have grown substantially. There have been a lot of industries that have moved to South Carolina for a lot of reasons, favorable taxes, obviously being a very business-friendly state, but we don't have the same number of professional jobs available that you do in a lot of these major cities. So that can be a challenge and it can be a shock. Also, to the point where I mentioned cost of living, if you're living in a more expensive area, that can actually cause a little bit of a challenge. Let's say you're a teacher, for example. Teacher salaries on average are considerably less here in South Carolina than they are in a lot of other states, let's say in the Northeast. That's an adjustment for a lot of people, and cost of living has risen considerably. However, again, we've seen a lot of progress with a lot of industry moving to South Carolina. BMW's in Spartanburg. We've got Boeing in Charleston, and there's a lot of other industry in Charleston that has grown substantially. Here in the Hilton Head and Bluffton market, a lot of people work for Gulfstream or JCB or some of the big companies they work for. A lot of the healthcare system is probably one of the biggest employers in our market as well. So, there are jobs, but there's an adjustment there, and there aren't as many as many other markets. Number 10 is kind of a 2-in-1 here. It's a slower paced environment, and we've got a lot of happy people, smiling faces, beautiful places, right? So, these two things may not be the right fit for you. The slower pace might make you absolutely crazy. If you're on the roads, if you're at the checkout counter at the grocery store and things aren't moving as fast as you'd like them to, that could be a problem for you. I know I personally had to adjust and kind of slow down a little bit. It is actually something I've really grown to appreciate. A lot of other people I know have appreciated, but it's an adjustment. Things don't move as quickly as they do in other places, and that's not always such a bad thing. The other thing, part 2 of part 10, is that people are generally very happy here and very friendly. And so when you're passing somebody in a neighborhood that you don't know, they're probably going to wave to you. And that might be weird, but you're going to wave back. And if you don't, this may not be the place for you. If you're not just somebody who loves people and is super friendly, that could be a challenge for you. And that could be something that makes you miserable and you just won't be happy here. So, this is, as I mentioned earlier, a controversial topic, right? 10 reasons why you shouldn't move to South Carolina. I think it's always best to get these things out on the table to make sure you're comfortable with them so that before you move here, you're fully informed. You can make decisions as to whether or not these things are things you can adjust to, can live with, or are perfectly fine with. Hey, if you're looking to move here, drop a comment in. My team, super low pressure. We spend a lot of time just educating people on the market here, or what is around, what the area attractions are, what the great restaurants are. Sometimes we just jump on a Zoom call and open up the back end of our MLS and share that information with people, whether or not you move here or not. We're happy to do that, happy to educate. Reach out to our team. We'd love to help in any way we can.